And I think we have a colleague in the room. Vaughn, are you with us?
Hey, yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yes. So tell us what's happening on the ground there.
Hey there, we're actually outside. I'm going to take the phone here real fast. We're here outside of the Washington Hilton here right now, and they're pushing everybody back. We were just inside. I'm not sure if you have a signal of where we are here right now, but we're on Connecticut Avenue, just outside of the Washington Hilton. We were in the room. We were among a group. We're continuing to move.
I know, come on.
And back over that way, if you guys can see our shot, is where the Washington Hilton is. Over the course of the last hours, the perimeter was already shut down largely here to vehicle traffic ahead of this event. When we were inside, that is when we heard what were these apparent shots here. And you can see we saw Steve Scalise. We saw Jamison Greer, the U.S. Trade Representative. They just walked by us here on the sidewalk a few moments ago. But we also saw Scott Bessent, Pete Hegseth, each make their way out of this complex. After the president was removed first, we then saw a series of other administration officials, members of Congress, leave the scene here. There was inside of that room there, I know you guys were just having a conversation. It was essentially at a standstill, whether it was trays that had fallen or whether it was a drum that would have been beaten. But what we are hearing is that they were apparent gunshots. We made our way up to where they sounded as if they had been coming from before exiting the bottom. I think it's some context here to the scene. We actually left the exit where Ronald Reagan was shot just over 40 years ago. This was a moment which we still have very little clarity on. We were trying to glean from other guests there that were as to what they saw. There were folks that did tell us that they heard gunshots. And as you can hear, absolutely, sir. You can hear that the perimeter is moving out further from where it initially started. Guys, here at this point in time, I know that all of our colleagues that were here inside of the room, Ken Delaney and Carol Leonnig, Jackie Alamany, Eugene Daniels, everybody is inside trying to get the information that we can. One other part of the context to this particular room at the Washington Hilton, it is in a ballroom that has very little, if not no cell service. And that is, I know you guys got a shot there previously from somebody that you were talking to, but it is very difficult to send out video, to text message. Even trying to establish connection here outside with you guys was difficult here. So I think that is where there is still, for the folks that are still stuck inside, there is going to be a gap of information that we're trying to figure out in real time. At MS Now, our table where we were seated, we were actually seated next to FBI Director Kash Patel. And this is a moment here when you were looking at the administration, not only the president and Melania Trump, J.D. Vance, Pete Hegseth, Mehmet Oz, other top administration officials, members of Congress that were scattered throughout that room there. I want to be very clear, where we were seated, we were in the back of the ballroom, MS Now's table, and it sounded like it was coming up from the corridors of the lobby where folks first entered in. And that is where there was a lot of confusion. And at that point in time is when we saw the long rifle Secret Service step in. Everybody crashed to the ground before the president was removed. There was a lot of questions as to what exactly was taking place. But then we saw one by one Pete Hegseth led out, actually, interestingly, back to where it sounded as if the gunshots had come from. Kash Patel, we actually walked alongside of him as we were trying, it's packed in there. We were trying to make our way out through the tables alongside Kash Patel. We saw the White House press pool that was stationed over by an elevator. They apparently would indicate to me that the president was still inside of the hotel and had not left, because the White House press pool generally travels with the president of the United States wherever he goes. Of course, when you're looking at Butler, Pennsylvania, though, the president was rushed to the hospital, different circumstance. The president not struck gear, but we saw the White House press pool holding over by the elevator doors. That is the contingency, one TV outlet, one print outlet that is designated on a particular day to be with the president there. So there was a lot of questions here as to exactly what unfolded. I know I'm kind of going off here, giving you a play-by-play as it comes to my head here, but there are essentially one main set of metal detectors that folks must come through. When you enter, everybody had to have a ticket to enter the Hilton, Washington Hilton. And then once you get your ticket, you either go down the escalator or up the escalator, depending which level you're entering from. And then it is just outside of that main ballroom, about 100 yards away is where that metal detector is, that everybody has to go through. We do not have information at this point in time, as I am talking here, whether the apparent gunman had made it through the metal detector or not, or whether shots were fired before that metal detector. If the shots were in fact fired before the metal detector, we would have very likely heard that from inside of the ballroom. It did not sound like the shots were fired, within, 50 feet of us. It did sound like an echo almost further down the lobby there. But I think that is where it is notable when the long rifles, when the Secret Service jumped in, Pete Hegseth, for instance, about maybe 4 or 5 minutes later was led walking and standing, which would indicate that they believed the perimeter to be at least somewhat secure. Again, I'm thinking, Jackie, that was about 5 minutes after. Jackie Alamania is standing with me here. That was about 5 minutes after. Jackie is joining me. Jackie, it was about 5 minutes after we saw, after the shots were fired, that Pete Hegseth made his way down. And he was standing when he exited the back where it sounded like the gunshots came from, which would suggest the perimeter was secure. And I don't think they would have let the FBI director, Kash Patel, leave the Washington Hilton in the way that we saw him leave if they were not confident that somebody had been detained or some sort of situation in which they believed that this was an incident that was all but under control.
That sounds right, that it was a very chaotic moment. And even when you were watching...
We just heard it from inside. They're resuming the program shortly. They made an announcement in the ballroom.
Jesse Rodriguez is telling us that they are resuming the program here shortly.
Everyone was back being evacuated.
Okay,
and
so
this
stay
is happening.
with this this
and
continues. I know that this is happening in real time, Vaughn, and your eyewitness report is helping us kind of piece together so many things that are happening. It seems likely that this happened, if this did happen, beyond the security bubble, beyond the outside the magnetometers and the metal detectors, then this would actually be a scenario where the security plan worked because the potential assailant was stopped and was foiled in their plot.
Right. And you can see here, folks, I know a great many folks watching probably have not been to Washington, D.C., but Connecticut Avenue is the main corridor that runs, all but close to the White House and Pennsylvania Avenue, up to where the Washington Hilton is at in northwest Washington. It's probably, I would say, 3 miles from the White House. Yeah. And we have not seen any other motorcades, but to watch this at a standstill, we're going to make our way back over here to see if we can get closer. If the program is resuming, is the assumption, guys, that we may be able to get back closer then? I think that there's a lot of questions for even.
Restart the window break. Okay, we're not letting anybody in unless you're police.
And so,
sir.
Yeah, we're good. We're not going in. We're not going in.
So, but you have to go down. Move that down. Everyone that's coming up, you have to go this way.
And so, as you can hear, they're still keeping the perimeter, but it sounds like the White House Correspondents' Dinner is going to go forward as planned here, despite the evacuations. It's not clear whether everybody left the premise or not. People like the FBI director or Pete Hegseth or J.D. Vance, the vice president, but I'm going to try to, guys, I honestly saw Carol. We walked out with Carol Leonnig. We walked out with a few others of our colleagues, and we're going to try to see what information we can get from them. Our Jake Trailer, our White House, our actually.
Vaughn, just stay with me. Vaughn, stay with me for 1 second. I just want to know if the pictures that we're looking at are live from inside the ballroom control room. Is that a live picture? Okay, so we are seeing some activity still inside the ballroom, which means that there are still people there, Vaughn. And it's clear based on what you're reporting, and obviously what you were just showing us, that the police are asking you to keep moving away from the hotel, at least expanding the perimeter. But there are still people inside the ballroom who have not left. So we'll see exactly how, to the reporting and to what you were saying, what Jesse was also saying, that the program will continue. It's going to be interesting to see whether they allow people like you, Vaughn, and others who have been pushed away from the perimeter to return to the hotel and actually enter the ballroom. It's clear they haven't been given that order yet.
I also was just passed along from our colleague, White House reporter Jake Trailer, that the White House is saying that President Trump is okay and that he was not hit by anything here.